Vehicle accidents occur almost every day in our community. Most are minor fender benders, but occasionally we do have accidents that make it challenging for firefighters. When this happens, we as a fire department work to stabilize the vehicle so first responders can safely work on assisting the occupants. Station 2 Fire Captain Tabor Aiken explains a recent training exercise for these types of incidents.
Both stations essentially have two setups. One is a vehicle on its side, which is a pretty common occurrence, and then the other one is actually a stacked vehicle. So we've got one car that's got four wheels or on the ground, and then the other car is sitting on top of that. So an accident could be that one vehicle was stopped, a smaller vehicle came up from behind, and then went underneath the other vehicle. So now you potentially have victims trapped in the vehicle that is underneath while the other car is sitting on top.
Okay, so which one of these would be a more common occurrence that we would see on scene?
Yeah, I'd say that probably the vehicle on its side is a little more common, something that we might see a little more often. Potentially a car rolls simply onto its side, or a car rolls over and then ends up on its side.
Okay, so can you tell us about some of the different apparatus that we're using with these?
Sure. The piece that's probably the primary is we're using a set of struts, and the primary component that we're training on tonight is stabilization.
Okay.
So in both of those scenarios, the stabilization element is the same. We need to stabilize that vehicle. We need to stop it from moving before we can do any work, specifically extrication. So if someone's trapped in the vehicle, then we need to make sure that that vehicle doesn't move anymore before we try getting that person out. Typically, that extrication process is going to involve more work on the car, movement, and so we want to make sure it's as stable as possible before we're putting firefighters on the vehicle, in the vehicle, possibly paramedics in the vehicle. We want to make sure we've limited that movement as much as we can control.
So we've talked about the vehicle on the side. What about the vehicles that are stacked on top of each other? Is that something we see very often, or no?
Not something we see very often, no.
Okay.
I can't remember ever seeing it myself on an actual scene, but it's the potential for it.
Okay.
And then really what setting something like that up in a training environment forces us to do is apply the skills and think about how we might apply the tools that we have, the skills that we have to, say, the vehicle on its side, and then the tools that we have, the skills to the vehicle that's stacked.
All right, Tabor, so you're right that we see different scenarios and we have to get creative, things like that. What other kind of accidents or crashes do we see that are a little more common?
I'd say common is probably just a standard sort of two-vehicle accident, possibly a head-on, sort of your traditional fender bender. One car stopped, another car rear ends that car. Most accidents that we respond to are minimal extrication, require some patient care. Frequently we'll do things like fluid cleanup or clean up debris from the vehicles, try to clean the roadway up, move vehicles out as quickly as possible so that the roadway is back open for traffic, and then assist police, possibly with traffic direction, assist a tow truck company with a little bit of scene cleanup. Again, try to get that roadway clean and open back up as quickly and as reasonably as possible.
Okay, so you talked about stabilization and how that's there to protect the victim, right?
Sure.
Keep the car from moving, things like that. What other kind of hazards do we have to worry about on a car scene?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the big advantages that we have that's protecting us is our gear. We take it for granted because we use it all the time, but it's got a real specific purpose. So it's protecting us from things like broken glass, debris, whether it's metal or other pieces that are going to come off a car. Fluids are a big part, that all the stuff that's in the car when it gets in an accident tends to start leaking, so we might have antifreeze, gas, could have other fluids that are coming out. A big one on the roadway that we wear the vests and try to do some high visibility clothing for, as well as the lights, is traffic. You know that we need to protect ourselves from everybody else that's still trying to use that roadway, may not see us, may be distracted by the accident, and so trying to maintain a safe place for everyone to work, and then trying to address the accident scene without having any further injuries take place.
Okay, and I know that we also train on where we park and how that is a factor in a scene like this.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is you try to use our vehicles as well as other vehicles, specifically police vehicles, to block the scene so that the people that are doing the work are protected. So if someone were to come up on that scene and not be paying attention, not see the fire truck or other emergency vehicle and start to go into the scene, that they would be stopped and we would be protected by, say, a fire truck they would be stopped by that fire truck. So it certainly could create another accident, which we definitely don't want, but it does protect the people working on the accident scene. So you're right, we will use some apparatus. So you might see, specifically a freeway is a great example, where you might see an engine, a fire engine, parked back a ways from the scene, and it doesn't look like it's doing anything. And in fact, it's doing an important job, which is protecting that scene, forcing everyone to move over a lane and stay away from that accident.
Okay. All right, Tabor, so we're working on, your standard cars or anything like that. Tell me about hybrid vehicles and how we have to work differently with a car like that.
Yeah, I'd say the primary piece with a hybrid, that's the big difference, is the power source, and trying to be really careful with that. And we do a lot of ongoing training because the technology is constantly evolving and trying to stay on top of it.
Right.
I'll be honest and say it's challenging. I've worked a couple of hybrid cars that have been involved in accidents, and it's a learning experience as you go. Try to be very careful, know what to look for, but also just taking our time and being very deliberate about it, and then accessing resources, as silly as it may seem, an owner's manual. There's a lot of information online that we can access and have access to, and then as well as if they're able to assist, the owner of the vehicle may know the vehicle better, so if they're able to give some information, they may be helpful as well. But essentially, it's similar in the approach that we take with any car accident, just that we move very deliberately. We do our best to constantly assess what we're working with, collect as much information as we can before making decisions, and then make those decisions, reevaluate as we go. Is that the right decision? If not, change it, and constantly keep using that information. So it's a pretty standard protocol that we use, and hybrids fit in there. They just have got a little bit of a different technology system under the hood.
Tabor, this has been very useful information. Thanks for being here tonight.
You're welcome, Chris. Thanks for having me.